We are going to turn to roundtable time. Bill, I will ask, we've had a request, if you could close the shade behind you, and
Oh
then
yeah,
we
yeah,
could see you.
yeah. Wow,
No,
that was not intentional. How about that? Okay.
that's all right. All right, thank you so much. That's great. And we are going to have a roundtable for just about an hour, and I'm going to welcome Andrew Goodman, who's founder and president of Page Zero Media. Hey, Andrew. Amy Bishop, owner of Cultivative Marketing. And AJ, welcome you back on. Melissa, you can come back on, that'd be great. Lisa Meyer and Emmy. So here we are. And if you can throw your questions in the Q&A panel, and we'll get going. And I don't know how to change our screen, but anyway. Great. All right. Welcome. Thanks, everyone. And Andrew, hello from Maine to Canada.
All right. Hello.
How are things with you?
You shouldn't ask. I mean, they're always the same. Every day is the same. I don't go anywhere.
No.
Business is pretty good. I guess that's we can count ourselves lucky is not exactly the word, but almost feeling like I could use a vacation. From what? Well, from being in one place, I guess.
You know, I think that's a really good point, is that from a mental health standpoint, it feels a little strange to take vacation when you're still staying in your home, but it's really important. I think it's probably more important now than ever to be able to actually remove yourself from the digitals during this time, if you can. But that said, and you know, this time has been extraordinary for so many reasons, but you kind of hit on it, Andrew, that, you know, for so many, this is a time of seeing unprecedented demand and trying to figure out how to meet this new surge in interest. And while others are in the opposite boat and trying to figure out how to generate interest, keep things going, and trying to figure out how to fill a funnel that is suddenly looking quite sparse. So I guess I'd kind of open it up to, how are you dealing with, if you're working with clients yourselves that have or experience both like the great things that are going on and also really struggling, and how you're balancing that work with clients, to anyone?
I'm happy to start. I mean, when it comes to struggling, there was a bit of a go around earlier, and I think a lot of people talked about a lot of hand holding, and depending on the types of clients that you have, and if your role and you're a fairly large organization, or you're very close to someone who's really, really struggling and they want to keep you around through that struggle. In our case, I think the struggling companies are really fairly chill, and they pause things, and you know, we left it there and we're there for them, but we know that their sector is off. It's shut off. Certain financial things, not all, and travel, and we know that we're just, if they need something small, we do it, but basically we'll be ready when they come back. And for everyone else, it's been, you know, a situation of constant changing of conversion rates. Certain retail, certain basic goods have been surging, and if you were caught flat, you know, then you didn't get that profit to bank against potentially future slowdowns. And seeing players like Amazon exiting the auction, and many companies exiting the auction means like almost an unusually strong spend if you're not careful, and or ROI is so high that expectations get out of whack. So I think what we're seeing is now that the surge is slowing, then we have to chase after that and be optimizing pretty regularly.
Yeah. Audience insights reporting has been kind of wild to look at. I mean, it is really just all over the place with players coming in and out and up and down, and it's been fascinating. We have a great question from DT, and why don't we'll go around, give everyone a chance to weigh on this. $250 to spend. AJ on LinkedIn, this might be. We're going to start with you actually, because you have $250. Where would you spend it right now? And I guess it doesn't actually have to be LinkedIn, but $250, not $250,000. $250. Where are you going to spend it?
Yeah, I wouldn't spend it on LinkedIn most likely. That would get me like 25 clicks. Not going to get too much mileage there, but as alluded to, I think I would probably spend it on YouTube. YouTube's costs right now are incredible because of so many advertisers, both B2B and B2C, pulling out. And so I think that would really get you a lot. This is also a time where so many people are afraid of signing like large deals or long contracts. And YouTube is so much a top of the funnel type of platform. So yeah, I think I'd invest it there.
Great. Melissa.
Where would I spend $250? I would spend it to develop some content. I would get a writer, or I would get a video crew, and I would get some content put together, and then figure out how you can find the money to promote it later. But people lack content.
Great. Bill.
I would say, as my usual unhelpful answer, it depends. I mean, if you have the content, it's ready to go, you spend it on fuel. If you don't have the content, you spend 30% on content and 70% on fuel. Because there are a lot of people, like you talk to a typical creative shop, like a full serve agency, they'll take all your money and they'll build content and there's no frickin' fuel because they make bigger margin on the content than they do on the fuel. So it depends. But I'm with AJ. I'm a huge fan of YouTube right now. I'm a huge fan of the socials because they're so depressed, and particularly if you're B2B right now, LinkedIn is huge because everybody's freaking out. And typically LinkedIn does really well if you're trying to reach marketers and salespeople, but it doesn't do so well reaching other constituencies because they're not looking for a job. Everybody's thinking about jobs right now and their resumes. So you get a lot of constituencies that aren't normally on LinkedIn who are on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn and YouTube, if you got the content, otherwise some on content, but I wouldn't blow it all on content.
All right, and Lisa.
I would say probably Facebook, and that is assuming that I have the content. I think that, people are on social. We've had really great luck with B2B on social right now, on Facebook right now. The prices are very low, and even executives that we're targeting have a lot of extra time.
Great. And is that Facebook itself or the Facebook universe? Does that include Instagram or?
It depends on the product or service, but usually Facebook and not the Facebook universe unless it skews younger.
Great. All right. And Andrew, you have $250.
Well, that's right. Bearing that in mind, I'm thinking of hyper targeting that on Google Ads to a geo, to a postal code. I'm thinking of examples like selling real estate or leasing property, something like that. Tried that on Facebook and poof, gone. So I'd say Google, well, in certain verticals, Facebook won't offer you that type geo-targeting in housing. That's discriminatory. So I think Google will allow it.
All right. We have some really, these are some good thoughts. Thoughts on Quora, Reddit specifically, but I'll throw in Snapchat in there too. I know that's a little bit less from probably the B2B demographic, but just wondering if anyone's also using that. Cora, Reddit, thoughts on those channels.
Yeah, I just invested in Cora. I think it's such a cool platform from a user side, and so I really wanted to jump in and start using it on the paid side. I launched a new podcast about 4 months ago just about LinkedIn ads. And so what I did is any post that's in the topic about LinkedIn ads, my ad is showing up trying to get people who, if you're asking questions or reading answers about it, listening to my podcast episodes are probably a good fit. And that felt pretty targeted, not a ton of traffic, but I'm paying something like 31 cents a click from it. And so I'm a big fan, especially because I play so much in B2B. Can't really talk too much to Snapchat or others that aren't as much in B2B because I just haven't mentally explored them.
How about Reddit? Anyone using Reddit? All right. Anyone else using Quora?
We would probably start using Cora. It looks like it's the same intent as what we've seen over the years with certain websites on the GDN problem solving sites. And they actually are my biggest concern, because then that'll break and it'll stop working, and GDN needs to kind of come back for some of that useful content. So I probably start there, and then if we rescued that, then I'd do the same on Cora.
Yeah, Cora's been interesting to watch develop. They have a bunch of ex-Google, Facebook folks on the ads product side, so they're trying to. It's interesting. How about Pinterest? Is anyone doing anything with Pinterest?
We have over the years, not lately, but it's an organic bonanza. That's the problem when they turn up the ad or turn down the organic reach. Then you're looking at a totally different cost equation. But yeah, something in design or something like a wedding related. There are a lot of uses for Pinterest, but I can't speak to the ROI when it's not free.
All right, and we have somebody asking about TikTok. Anyone dipping their toe into anyone on TikTok or watching TikTok? I'm addicted to TikTok. Don't go on it right now because we won't see you for another 4 hours. But if you have some time to burn, just hit that For You feed, and we'll come up for air. Bring some water and snacks on hand. It's highly addictive. All right, great. Where are you? Oh, so somebody is a tool. What's the pricing on a landing page? Landing page. So not specific, but just generally from a perspective. And landing pricing on landing pages. Anyone?
You're breaking up there, Ginny, but I think you were asking about the person who is asking, should they put the price of the tool on the page where they can sign up? Is that what you were asking? Yeah.
Correct.
My opinion, and this may just be my personal opinion, but it's also borne out by some data, is that you should put the price on there. I have found that the more upfront you are, the less unqualified leads you will get, because people will have no idea what your tool costs. They might think that it's a couple $100 and it's $20,000. And so you spend a lot of time trying to, get that lead, and then they find out it's $20,000. They're like, oh, I was looking for something that was 200. It just helps to weed out the people that aren't qualified and kind of give them ideas of what you're going to pay. And that has borne out in testing as well. So I'd be interested if others on the panel have a different opinion.
I'd agree with you in the 80% circumstance, Melissa, or definitely B2C and B2 small b. But if you're selling an Oracle database or an email app that is, you need a list size of more than 100K before it makes sense. If you communicate price to that constituency, they don't expect to see price. They're kind of expecting a discussion. But you still want to signal that, because what you don't want is people looking for MailChimp clogging up your sales funnel. So
Right.
even if you don't have price, you communicate, hey, this is really well suited for the enterprise class or for scaling, or if you've got a list size beyond X, we're the one to talk to.
Excellent point. Yeah, absolutely. You're right. And a lot of those, the price is so variable depending on, what you're signing up for, that you can't even really put it on your page. So I agree with you, Bill. That makes sense.
And I think I'd back up both of you on this one. I made the quote unquote unpopular decision of publishing our agency's pricing. Simply, well, I hate as a consumer being jerked around, wondering like, oh, okay, I've got to fill out a form and hop on a phone with a sales rep before I can even find out if I'm in the ballpark. So we published our pricing, and what I've noticed, I'm sure we're getting fewer leads, but my time is, I'm the founder and the only sales guy. So my time is better spent because I'm hopping on the phone with people who most of the time they've decided, yeah, this pricing works for me. In Laura's question here, she asked specifically about displaying the price on the same page as where they sign up for the tool. I think as long as you have pricing, and I would say one of your menu items at the top, very easy to access, or even a message saying like starting from $20 a month or starting from $200 a month. If you had something like that, I don't think it needs to be on exactly the same page, especially because with a trial, you want the least amount of friction possible, and then let them try it out. And once they've realized that they're getting value out of your tool, that's when they can start exploring prices, and now they know what it's worth to them. So anyway, a little rambling there, but hopefully that helps.
Yeah, I mean, there are absolutely tons of examples to go by too. You can go to all the tools and software that you like and use, and we've got a new client that I think is hitting it perfectly. You have to go and look for the pricing. It's not on that page, but it's not a very far journey, and they have a wide range. You have the mid-range that they're going for, but then you have enterprise pricing, which is usually ask, or it's a different, and you don't list it. But I think, yeah, it doesn't hurt to list prices, and I don't think there's any one way. There's no ultimate landing page. There's no ultimate efficiency, because like you've all said, you want to dissuade, tire kickers from your funnel.
Yeah, and then I guess, one, if you can have, chat. If you really don't want to have pricing on your pages for competitive reasons, which is pretty much the only reason I can think of for not doing it, right? Because you're just putting up friction for what other reason? But having chat, having that available, at least so that you're not making somebody like submit a form and wait and get counted by a salesperson, and that, I guess I would think that's true. But I guess I always go back to, as a user, what's the experience I want when I'm looking at something, trying to find a vendor, and time is valuable. How do I reduce as much friction as possible? For everyone on the line, do feel free to drop your questions in the Q&A module. I was just wondering, what kind of is the biggest surprise, lesson, takeaway that you think will stick with you going forward? That you've learned from this experience, whether on your own or through a client experience, that is going to sort of change your marketing behavior, marketing perspective going forward, long term.
I've got a good answer on this one. I have two things that really kind of struck me during the whole COVID panic. First off, we had like 40% of our clients pause during that 2 weeks of panic, which was obviously very scary to me. And what I realized is we need to be as sticky as possible. So before then, we'd been sending out like a weekly report, and we give them a whole lot of pivot table level analysis. And we realized that's helpful for us in explaining, but it's not a resource that they're going to be able to forward to their boss. And so we rushed to roll out Data Studio dashboards that were updated every single day, so our clients can then show that to their VP or their CMO and actually follow progress along the way. And that was one of the things we did to make ourselves stickier, so that as our clients are going through and saying, okay, our budgets have been slashed, do we cut the agency? Do we cut the channel? When they see the data and the level of service that we're providing them, we've had several who said, hey, you know what, I'm going to cut someone else, my agency budget elsewhere, because we love working with you and we love this level of data. The other thing I realized is that I've never regretted the investment that I've made in content up until now. Being a guest on podcasts, doing joint webinars, producing our own podcast, all of these types of things, traveling to conferences to speak. These have all, over the last 5.5 years, shored us up to ensure that we have a constant stream of leads. And if those leads totally dried up and we lost 40% of our clients at the same time, I don't know that we would have a business still. So, it doesn't necessarily help right now, but invest in content, invest in things that are going to pay off over the next several years, not just tomorrow.
That's great. Anyone else have long-term lessons from this?
Well, I agree with AJ. I think, the more you can make yourself helpful and invaluable. I talked about that in my presentation, but I think as at least those of us on the agency side, if your agency is invaluable to clients, we've had situations with our clients where they work with multiple agencies. They've let everybody else go but us, because we're the ones that are providing the most valuable insights and the most valuable service for them. So they've kept us on when others have gone by the wayside or at least been paused. So the more that you can show those insights to show that, you're getting them value, I think that goes a long way.
And I would second that from Melissa. Sorry, I don't have a photo up. I'll make sure the next conference I'll have that remedied. This is Lisa Meyer, but that is kind of where we try to play all the time. Where we're offering insights that they wouldn't necessarily have themselves, and so we're always trying to help them with their business in addition helping them with their marketing, which is a very fine line, but it's an important element to help the companies understand we're thinking for them, for their money, for the best spend for their money. So they really appreciate that, and I think it has helped us save some clients that we might have otherwise lost during this time.
Jenny, I'm not hearing Jenny.
Oh, sorry. Is that better? Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Sorry, I'm having speaker challenges. I have just been so impressed by companies' ability to adapt and shift really, really quickly in ways that I think if you had asked them 3 months ago or however long before we've been in this process, could you do this? They would have said, you're insane, no way, that would never be able to happen. Or, you've seen these companies have been digital transformation for the last 4 years, and all of a sudden they've been able to, squash those processes and transform within weeks. So I really think that kind of, it's exhausting, but people are going to have this sense of, it doesn't need to take so long to get stuff done. We can do more than we thought we could. We can test new channels. We can try new content. We can do less with more in less time than we thought possible. So I think that's going to be really interesting. I do think people are going to need a break, but these long decision cycles and processes, I think, are going to get shrunk. All right. This is sort of back to the pricing question, but when you literally are not allowed to show pricing, and so we talked a little bit about weeding out unwanted leads and traffic, but I guess maybe even from a broader perspective, how do you ensure that you're funneling the right people in and putting gates up with whether it's your content, your ads, and good examples of how that process works?
I think if you have if you have an expensive piece of software, use the words that describe it. Things like enterprise level for your organization rather than your small business. If it is a small business level tool, use those words to talk to them like they are the business owner. Like small businesses, use examples on the page of clients who you're already working with, who are kind of in their level, and then they'll get to see if that's their peer group or not. And maybe even on your forms, if you're doing gated content, in the form you can ask, like, what is your company size? And that way you know how to score those leads. If they're in the right size of company who can afford, then you score those really high and follow up that way. And if they're less, trigger them an email sequence that just says, like, hey, here's what our pricing looks like. Wonder if you're in the market for this, or if we can recommend another tool. I think that kind of recommendation would go a long way.
Agreed. Perfect answer, AJ.
I'd like to think it starts with keywords. I know I'm not saying anything you don't already know, but in terms of targeting, the biggest problems in weeding come from, this kind of being a little bit finicky about cost per lead. So wanting a low cost per lead when you want lead quality and real leads. So, you start with the keywords, avoid sales pitches from publishers telling you to target a huge number of people and turning smart bidding on as if like somehow that's acquisition. All you're doing is finding just thousands of people who aren't targeted. But I mean, between proper keyword targeting, choosing more narrow keywords, exact matches, and all the negatives that would have to come if you were just throwing broader keywords out there. That's obvious, but that's the biggest problem you see. Oh, look, we have a $20 cost per lead. Wow, that's not the goal. The goal is obviously cost per, closed sale.
Steve Hammer on Twitter put a question out about what's your biggest mistake you've seen in either that you made or in an account that you've audited. And somebody said an adoption agency was getting 40% of its clicks from dog adoptions, and they are a human baby adoption agency, but they neglected to negate dog. So it's the simple things that sometimes come and get you, right? Anyone else have any other thoughts on kind of the traffic filtering? All right. David, thanks for your question from somebody in here. So when companies are going through digital transformation, whether they're a new business or existing business that has had it kind of on the roadmap or just hearing about it, where would you suggest leadership start on that process? Anyone have any thoughts on that?
That sounds like a big company problem, when in fact it's also a small entrepreneur decision. So I don't solve enterprise level problems about giant companies digitally transforming. Many of my friends have tried to solve them for media agencies. Newspaper companies, and all of that. It's a huge problem. But think about this. Think about there's a subset of people who are brave and want to embrace it, even if they're starting out maybe in their 30s or 40s, launching retail. And digital transformation comes from saying, I don't want these stores to even matter in 3 years. So that's a friend of mine. I think it's all about being 100% committed to your business model that is completely offline, is not completely online. So those companies that are clinging to bricks and clicks, hey, it makes sense, of course. We have clients like that. But right now, we're just seeing it. We're seeing that retailers who are 70% offline, 30% online, I don't know, J. Crew might be a bad example. They might have had other problems. But we have companies that are 50-50 who right now are thriving. So
Yeah.
I mean, the more online you go, the more digital you go, it seems that like the safer you are.
And I think, you know, so many times I've seen with retail that are omnichannel is that the digital is held back, and not just digital from the strictly e-commerce standpoint, but the way that digital can support the offline sales and drive traffic is that everyone gets in their attribution. I'm getting the credit for this. Where's my budget going? They can't take my budget. They're, you know, it's those siloing that turn into antagonistic kind of rivalries within the same company. So I think obviously this depends on what the context is of the company, but if you can look around your teams, whether it's you know, you've got a digital team, what does that actually look like? Everyone should have digital ingrained in their team, whether they're you know, strictly working from a retail location. Digital should flow into what you're doing and help support your goals. So try kind of realigning that that whole mentality of kind of going back to the fundamentals of we're one company and breaking down silos, I think is, you know, to some extent from a leadership standpoint, kind of backing that out, where to start. And does anyone have any, like, there's just been so many interesting ways and big pivots of people that have been shifting in this, that whether it was people who were selling on Amazon and then Amazon stopped taking, you know, inventory, how to suddenly fulfill your orders, or your supply chain is disrupted, or from B2B, I guess, you know, what are some of the big challenges that on the B2B side you've been seeing, Melissa, from an operational standpoint?
Yeah, the biggest challenge has been, you know, product, you know, getting product in. Either they've got too much, they're overloaded and they can't offload, or in the case of medical, they can't make it stuff fast enough. One of our clients has had to shift dollars away from marketing to manufacturing because they can't keep up. So they've had to, you know, move all that away. A lot of it is just, I think a lot of B2B advertisers are finally realizing, hey, this online thing, you know, really can work, especially if our salespeople can't get out and sell in person right now. We've got to be online, and that we've been telling them that for 8 years or whatever. So it's kind of a kick in the butt. It's like a lot of things, you know, we're remote working. There's all these companies that say, we can't do remote work. You know, people, they need to be in the office. And then now all of a sudden they're realizing, oh, maybe they don't need to be in the office. This is working just fine. It's kind of the same way with B2B and getting more into the, you know, the digital ecospace. This has forced people to realize that they can do things differently.
Yeah.
It's interesting because this is happening in vertical after vertical. So one good question for a larger organization to ask might be, if I look at a smaller business or a whole sector that's made up of smaller proprietors and see that they've been digitally transforming themselves by adopting software that they never had before. That's been a number of our clients. There's one called Clio in legal practice management that ran the table on all these small to mid-sized law firms needing a new platform that wasn't from 1989. And we're seeing it in event planning. And a contractor came to my house to give me a landscaping quote, and another contractor came to my house to give me a landscaping quote. The one that uses the standard new quoting software, it's got some cute name that makes it sound like you're building stuff. That's the one that got the job because the quote is detailed and he knows how to use software, and he's not bullshitting me, basically. So if these kinds of players are going 180 from how they used to do it, then there must be tools that every organization, even larger organizations, should be adopting immediately. And somebody's full-time job should probably be to evaluate how to deploy them, best deploy them.
Right. We have a big question, the death of the cookie, and how the browsers changing how they're treating cookies is going to, is currently and will continue to, as Chrome moves in this direction, to affect targeting, tracking, and the ecosystem from a whole perspective. So how are you all thinking about tracking and attribution without third-party cookies?
So I sure think that this is going to drive people directly to the platforms. I don't see a business model that's viable yet. I'm sure people are working on it, but for companies like AdRoll, I just don't know how they're going to be able to function in that world with their current model. So we still all need to use retargeting. And so I think that means we're going to all go directly to Facebook and have a retargeting campaign, directly to Google, have it directly to LinkedIn even. And I think that's going to be really important. The other thing is that your site, you should be thinking right now as marketers, how do we create a login experience? How do we incentivize people to log in with us? Because if a cookie is behind a login, whether it's first party or third party, it's going to be trusted. And so the chances of your data being accurate, if your customer gets behind a login, are going to be much, much higher, and you should see more accuracy in your reporting. So I would be thinking about that now. What sort of login experience, member experience can we create so that our tracking is still very valuable?
Yeah, and that gets into ABM too, right? Like ABM that's where a lot of this is going to go. You don't have these third-party cookies anymore, and all of our clients are asking us about ABM now. Even though it's really been around for a long time, it's like the new hot thing because of the cookies going away. So for those advertisers that are already doing it, they're way ahead of the game, and you should start looking at that if you're not already.
Well, ABM's been around, exactly, Melissa, for a distressingly long time. It's just, some jobbo 5 years ago decided to make a career for themselves by renaming it.
Yeah.
It's just a subset of retargeting to a list.
Yep. It's just custom audiences, but that's
right.
The buzzword of du jour.
But I guess you have to name things differently if you're selling them to salespeople or helping marketing do something to like throw a sop to the salespeople and keep them happy. But it works. But the login thing I think is a great idea, AJ, particularly if you can have content that's compelling for it, and then make the login easy. I mean, make the login as much as possible. Use your existing Facebook or LinkedIn login, and then we get additional data about that login too.
Yeah, and I know there's a whole lot being done with deterministic IP data and matching device IDs by a whole bunch of ad tech companies. But I think there's going to be a lot of disruption in this realm, and to some extent, it's still sort of so much on the horizon that the actual fallout will be, we have yet to see. But I think, to everyone's point, first-party data is going to be just more and more and more important. And any way that you can build audiences and own your audiences is going to be critical. Anyone else have any thoughts on that? And Lisa, I don't want to leave you out. Do you have any?
No, I agree with what AJ was saying, though. I think that's the path that we're trying to take.
And I'll just pile on to what Jenny said. When you were talking about device IDs, it's really important to understand that the majority of the effect is going to come from desktop traffic, because device ID was built right into all of our mobile devices, that entire ecosystem. So mobile won't be disrupted all that much. So yeah, I mean, be thinking about what your mobile experience looks like. Pay attention to how much of your mix is mobile versus desktop, because the desktop is where we're going to lose functionality and we're going to lose granularity in our reporting. So if you're a site that doesn't have a whole lot of desktop traffic to begin with, and the natural flow is going towards, you know, a higher share of mobile, then, you know, maybe you don't have to be as afraid as, I don't know, someone like us who has like 80% mobile or 80% desktop.
Yeah, and it also, just from a funnel perspective, I don't know if you're starting to think about that differently in terms of how important upper funnel is going to be to start building those engagements with customers, or are you really just going to focus on the cart and get that customer data at the cart? I don't know, and I don't have answers to that, but I do think that's kind of interesting to start thinking about from a sort of funnel distribution perspective. All right. Anyone have any final closing thoughts or questions for other panelists?
I'll throw out there, Simon Poulton has written some great articles for Search Engine Land. He is my go-to on the whole cookie situation. He doesn't view it as gravely as I do. His outlook on it is, yeah, we'll lose granularity and tracking, but it's going to be business as usual otherwise. But he'd be a fantastic one to follow. Simon Poulton, Poulton.
Yes, great. He is, yeah, he's terrific. He's at WPromote, and he is just a great guy to chat with. So if you chat with him live, he has a great accent. He's from New Zealand, so. That's a great point. And anything else? Anyone have any other big takeaways? We've had so much information today, so it's been great. All right. Thank you, everyone. Terrific. David, I'll turn things back over to you, the Grand MC.
Is my mic on?
Yeah.
Good. Okay. So thank you, everyone. Thank you especially to the intelligent and attractive speakers and panelists today. That's right, AJ, I'm looking at you. So to all the attendees, we have saved some of the best for last. Tomorrow we've got Aaron Levy of Tenuity. We've got the impresario of that world experience, Gianpaolo LaRusso. Frederic Valles from Optimizer, Perna Vergi from Microsoft, and then we'll have Nava Hopkins back from Hennessy to participate in the Q&A. And don't forget about the happy hour tomorrow night. Not tomorrow night, maybe for some Europeans and elsewhere on the globe, but tomorrow at the end of the Q&A, those attendees that want to hang around and chat with the speakers and panelists and maybe some of the other board members are welcome to do so. We did something similar this morning and had an open coffee experience, and that was a lot of fun. So even if you don't want to drink with us, you're welcome to participate. So thanks again, everybody. Thanks, Jenny, for a great job today.
Yeah, thanks Jenny. Thanks, David.
Thanks,
Thanks, Jenny.
great.
Excellent
Appreciate it.
job, everybody.
Adios.
Yes.
Bye.
Great job. Bye. Take care. Bye-bye.